I will correct one thing right out of the gates. Ripple did not actually issue XRP. The XRP ledger is an open source, decentralized technology, not dissimilar than Bitcoin. And some of the creators of the XRP ledger actually had been early engineers that worked on Bitcoin, and they saw some of the scalability problems that Bitcoin was likely to have, the speed, both from a energy consumption, cost, some of the other problems, and they wanted to build a better digital asset to solve some of these problems.
Blockbuster acquisition, they acquired Hidden Road, $1.25 billion. So if folks don't know Hidden Road, they process 3 trillion in transactions every year. As a part of this acquisition, Ripple's stablecoin RLUSD will become core collateral across the Hidden Road services. Hidden Road's post-trade activity will move to the XRP ledger, and now Ripple's going to offer custody, financing, and clearing to Hidden Road clients. It's a pretty big deal, it feels like. Ripple already had the army behind it. It felt a little to me like fake it till you make it, but like, did they just make it with this acquisition? I mean, this feels like they have some real institutional power now.
Let's just say XRP decides to, all of a sudden, they replace SWIFT. Let's say that happens. If XRP replaces SWIFT and FedNow, you know what happens? Let me give you some numbers here. XRP's ledger processes transactions in 3 to 5 seconds at nearly no cost, making it significantly faster and cheaper than SWIFT. So SWIFT processes $5 trillion daily, or 1.25 quadrillion annually. If you didn't know what that was, quadrillion annually, SWIFT. If XRP captures 5 to 10% of volume, let's just say 10% of volume, $125 trillion annually. The demand for XRP, by the way, could be any of these other technologies we're talking about. Analysts estimate that a $10 trillion market cap could push XRP's price to $100 per token, with full replacement potentially driving it up to $1,000. Now, who those analysts are, I'm willing to bet those analysts own Ripple. And that's why they're writing this. Hey, analysts, just because I say analyst says, it doesn't mean they're 100% right, but hey, it is a way of looking at what could happen with this. If this were to happen, it's a big deal.
Made big strides. President Trump has made big strides that are very pro-crypto. It's got to be great for somebody like you. However, the price of, let's just say, Bitcoin, which reached a high after the election of something like $107,000, is nowhere near that now. I think we're around 86,000 and change, but it's been a market drop. When do you foresee this moving back up? Because we've seen all kinds of wild projections of something like $250,000 per Bitcoin by the end of this year, to people who say this thing's going down.
Yeah. When I think about that, your last guest, Larry Fink, talked about just taking the long-term view.
Right.
And I almost don't think about it in that kind of short-term time frame. I think about what are the macro trends playing out for the crypto industry, for the XRP ecosystem. XRP has been the best performing major crypto in the last 90 days. We think about it as, what does that look like over the next 3 years? I'm very optimistic. I mean, Ripple just announced our largest acquisition, actually one of the largest acquisitions in the entire crypto industry to date. We announced it earlier this week on Tuesday, in the middle of tariff palooza. I don't know exactly what's going to happen with the tariffs, but we're betting on where the world's going to be in 3 years, not what's going to happen in the next 6 months. Our acquisition this week, Hidden Road, we paid $1.25 billion for what's called a prime broker. And this allows even larger institutions like BlackRock, like the biggest Wall Street financial institutions, to come into this market in a way they understand, with a safer prime broker to help clear transactions and a bigger balance sheet to do that. It's good for
economic historian and someone who's been in markets for 40 years. I actually think I'm starting to look like it now. It is, I think we're also at a unique moment geopolitically, and I could see in the next few years that we are going to have some kind of a grand global economic reordering. It's something on the equivalent of a new Bretton Woods, or if you want to go back, like a something back to the Steel Agreements or the Treaty of Versailles. There's a very good chance that we are going to have to have that over the next 4 years, and I'd like to be a part of it. I've studied this. I think it's kind of a unique skill.
The president doesn't try to reach.
I tell him what a gratis vendor is.
Yeah.
Because I was not going to go into the government. I was doing transition.
What is a gratis vendor?
A gratis vendor is an approved vendor for the United States of America that gives product to the government, doesn't sell it.
Okay.
So therefore, I don't have to go through the whole process of becoming a proper vendor because you're giving it to us. And then if you give it to Article 2, which is the president's stuff, then the president can accept it, right? Because it's give.
Sorry, Howard, what's an example of this? Like just to make
I write some software.
You write some software.
I write some software for the Commerce Department to do a better job of XYZ. You just give it to me. And then I do QA on it, and I can take it. If you sell it to me for $1, we go into government hell.
Right, the whole rigmarole.
Right? But if you give it to me, right? And then I set up, so I said, I'm calling it Doge.
Unclear whether we were going to exempt gold from tariffs, which I believe we have. So there was a big move out of vaults in Switzerland, out of vaults in London to get it into New York. And look, that there are a lot of different stores of value over time. Bitcoin's becoming a store of value. Gold has historically been a store of value. I think what's interesting is where do we see the gold demand coming from? A huge amount is from China.
Yes.
Where they, as I said, they're in the middle of an economic recession/depression. People don't trust the Chinese currency because they have capital controls. There are 1.4 billion Chinese who all want to get their money out, and they won't let them. They will let them buy gold. Clear.
All right, let's turn our attention back to the U.S. for our main story. The National Cryptocurrency Association is out with a new study on U.S. crypto sentiment. Crypto World's Mackenzie Sigalis spoke with Drew Alderati about the study. He is president of the association aimed at educating people on how to engage with crypto.
Why was it important to conduct this kind of research? And did anything surprise you in the findings?
So the NCA partnered with the Harris Poll to conduct the largest ever study of crypto holders in America. 1 in 5 Americans, 55 million American U.S. adults own or use crypto. More people over the age of 55 own crypto than people under the age of 25. Crypto isn't just for the bros, the crypto bros. Nearly a third of crypto holders are women. Nearly as many crypto holders work in construction as do in the technology sector. Crypto isn't just for the rich. 26% of crypto owning households earn less than $75,000. That's just 4 very quick metrics or data points. And when you dig into the report, there is more to learn, all of which I think is, some is surprising, some is not surprising, some is really just confirming what we thought. But now we have a definitive survey, the largest ever of its kind in the U.S., that folks can now point to and rely